Let me get started by talking about the times that we've been through here. And there's a lot of great people around the world that are currently scratching their heads, I think, trying to predict how we will work in the future. And it's been quite interesting to follow what has happened, over the past year or so. I found a few quotes last night, and in May 2020, the Morgan Stanley CEO was saying that we can work with virtually no real estate footprint. So 2 months into the lockdown, the pandemic, the big tech companies and other big companies around the world were basically saying the office is dead. We'll all work from home going forward. I think that was obviously not that was a little too fast. And towards the end of last year, there was a big change, and people were saying, well, you all need to come back to the office. People were suffering from a lot of COVID, working from home fatigue, et cetera, et cetera. And so now I think things are definitely looking a bit more, a lot more flexible. We already heard this morning a presentation about the hybrid workplace, and I think that is definitely what is the current sentiment. But I also heard at some point earlier this year a very smart person from PwC in the UK saying that I don't think we will know what the future looks like until we've been back in the office for 2 weeks or so, because we tend to go with the flow and forget how things were and look at our current situation. But I think things will definitely be a lot more flexible going forward. We're already seeing big companies really trying to tap into that, because obviously there is a huge savings potential in just cutting, with brute force, say up to 40% of all your desks around the office, et cetera, et cetera. And that might work well if you're a company with a huge call center, having a lot of people come in, work for some hours doing calls, et cetera, but there's no real team spirit to care about in the company. But I think for knowledge companies and companies where culture has an impact, and where it's important that people work together and can share ideas and do ideation over the coffee machine or whatever, it's really important that the companies adjust to the future and look in the direction of hybrid offices, supporting people working from home for some time and then come into the office. And then when they come into the office, it will be probably to do more of collaboration. Some people said that the office will change from a workspace to a collaboration space. And so the key to this, or at least from our perspective, is that a building really needs to understand, when, how, and for what activities it's being used, with a very high granularity and with an understanding for the ever-changing needs of the users. Because companies really need to make the buildings all about the users. We've seen a lot of digitalization of the actual bricks, the physical environments, and now the time has come to digitalize the activities in those buildings, because all of this needs to really support the users of the buildings. So for us, that ties in nicely with what we've done in terms of developing our UB capture device, which is sort of the starting point. So it has visual intelligence, it has AI built in, and it can help understand, people and their interactions in and around buildings. So that data can support in real time what people are doing. And I'd like to give the first example of that, because we've integrated the data from our sensors, for example, with a great company called Maps People. Just give me a second here. So you can see here, this is actually from the Maps People in Aalborg in Denmark. It's another Danish company. So Maps People is an indoor navigation company. I think they could be known as the Google Maps, Google Indoor Maps. And so basically what they offer is indoor navigation in offices, in malls, et cetera, et cetera. And what we've done is we've integrated sensor data with our application. So what you see, for example, is that we have live occupancy data overlaid on the indoor map here. So, for example, in this meeting room, there are now 2 people. this meeting room is empty. So if I'm a user, I want to find a vacant meeting room, I can of course look in the booking system. But sometimes you'll see people wandering around looking through the windows to see if a meeting room is available, because we all know that often the meeting rooms will be booked, but nobody's actually in there because people forgot to cancel their booking. So with this system here, you can get an overview. We can choose this meeting room here, and if I was actually in the office, I could choose directions. But since I'm in Copenhagen, it's going to be a bit long, a bit of a long journey there. But basically, this is how our data can augment systems already supporting the users of buildings. We're also doing integrations with a lot of other great companies in this space. I could mention Spacety, the Czech company. I can mention Planon, the big workspace management solution company, and other companies as well. So this is kind of the first step on this journey towards supporting the users in the building with live occupancy data. As we go further along, of course, what's important is to make sure that the facility really supports the users in the right way. So obviously, the example I normally give is that if there was a meeting before the pandemic with 10 people, you'd have 10 people sitting in the meeting room. During the lockdown, there would be 0 people in the meeting room, obviously, and going forward, there will be anywhere between 0 and 10 people in the meeting room. So it's really important to build an understanding of going forward, how are people actually using those meeting rooms as an example. And so with our sensor data, which we can then feed into our own platform, I'll show you how we can leverage that data to provide insights for the facility managers, buildings owners. So this is our dashboard, for example. This is Blocks Hub, which is where we are currently working, which is a co-working space. And so here we have a dashboard. We can see for the past month how the occupancy have been. We can try to zoom in a little bit on a shorter period of time. So we can take a week, for example, from 7th to the 11th of June. We could decide to only look at the meeting rooms. So those are Barcelona, Rome, and Lisbon. And then we could look at time intervals, of course, only from, say, 9 to 4 in the afternoon. And now we get a quick overview of how this looks for that week. Obviously, we will have patterns during the day with lunch breaks, etc., etc. And what's interesting to note is that the total capacity of these 3 meeting rooms is actually 20 people. And what you see here is that when there are people there, there's on average somewhere between 2 and 3 or 4 people there. So we also we can see that on certain days, there's a very high time occupancy, meaning that if one person is present, that's 100% time occupancy. But when we look at the space occupancy, it's only about a third full. And so what this tells us is that probably because we're post the pandemic, people are starting to come back, but meetings will be hybrid. Certain people are meeting are joining meetings from their home offices, and we need to understand how we then using the meeting room, because, for example, where we are, meeting rooms is always in high demand. People always complain they can't find enough meeting rooms. But in this case, we can see that they're heavily underutilized in terms of the size of the meeting rooms compared to how people actually use them. And so those kind of insights can help companies adapt to the changing needs of the users, because no one says that this will be the same in 6 months from now. It could be that everyone has come back, and so there'll be more people attending the meetings physically. But these kind of insights are really needed with very high granularity in order to support a much better experience for the users of the buildings, which the buildings should be all about. So just I think I've used most of my time now. Just to put this, looking forward, what we're also doing, since we have AI directly on our sensor devices, we're looking at understanding activity patterns, understanding what type of interactions people are having in the offices, again, in a completely anonymized way, but as a way to support a better user experience for the users of the building by constantly being able to adapt how the building is laid out, what type of facilities you have, what type of breakout spaces, workspaces, et cetera, that you have. And this can all be done with this visual intelligence and our UB capture, or sorry, our UB analytics platform device. So I think I will leave it at that. And obviously, if you have any questions, my information is in the invitation for this. I'll be happy to have a conversation with you. We're all about open access to our data and sharing data with any platform that has building intelligence built in.
Wow, cool stuff, Palle. Well, one question that I have for you, the same question that I asked earlier, is also, well, the climate crisis, the ESGs, the net zero, everybody's talking about health and smarty buildings. They're getting more and more important for investors. Is this the perfect storm right now? And why do you think 2021 is the year?
Yeah, I think it is. So actually, when I started the company 5 years ago, it was with the purpose of supporting real-time, adaptation of energy usage in buildings by, feeding occupancy into the building management systems. And to my disappointment, I found in the first couple of years that there was quite little appetite for that. And so we switched gears and looked at workspace management and occupancy management. But fortunately, we're seeing sort of the energy savings agenda coming back and feeding, occupancy data into the building management systems, and looking at how you use your facility, fortunately supports the ESG agenda. And we do see a tremendous appetite for that now.
Yeah, and do you think it's going fast enough? Because I see all those pledges that we are going to do net zero buildings in 2050, 2045. Is that fast enough, do you think?
No, it's not. I think as a citizen, I'm deeply concerned about the slow speed of what really needs to happen. So I think as an industry and as players in this industry, we have to push actually harder.
Yeah, I think, and we can, because the technology is there.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you very much, Palle.
Thank you.